In the old Bible stories, some cities did bad things and made the God angry. One of these famous cities is called Sodom and Gomorrah. But how did this story start? In this video, we'll discover the secrets of these ancient cities. It all begins with a story about a man named Lot, who was related to Abraham. This story tells us where some enemy groups came from and shows how important faith is. Let's uncover the truth. But before diving into the video, make sure to subscribe to our channel for more upcoming mysteries. We're diving into an old story about a place called Sodom and Gomorrah. But let's start at the beginning of this tale when things were full of magic and gods. In this book called Genesis, there's a smaller story about a guy named Lot. Abraham takes his nephew, Lot, along, even though God told him not to bring any family. Abraham and Lot get rich but start fighting about where their animals should graze. So Abraham lets Lot pick first. Lot chooses a really nice place, which hints that maybe he thought he'd inherit everything from Abraham. Later, Lot gets in trouble in a city called Sodom, and Abraham has to rescue him. But before God destroys Sodom for being wicked, Abraham asks God not to punish the good people living there. God saves Lot because of Abraham's plea, not because of Abraham's reason. Philemon and Baucis. In a place where people doubted the existence of gods, there was a man who didn't believe in them at all. He laughed at the idea of mighty beings making and changing things in the world. But an old hero named Lelius disagreed. He told a story about ancient trees and how Jupiter, a powerful god, and his clever son, visited a land where no one wanted to help them, except for an elderly couple named Baucis and Philemon. Baucis and Philemon were very kind and shared what they had with the gods, even though they didn't have much. Miraculously, as they served food and drinks, their supplies never ran out. When the couple offered their precious goose as a gift, the gods stopped them and promised to save them from a disaster that was coming to punish the bad people in the area. The gods took Baucis and Philemon to safety on a mountain. From there, they watched their home being spared while everything else around it was destroyed. Their small house turned into a beautiful temple, a special place built by the gods. The gods granted the couple's wish to stay together forever. Baucis and Philemon transformed into two trees that grew together, showing everyone the power of love and kindness. There lived an old farmer named Hyrius. One day, mighty gods Jupiter and Mercury, traveling together, stopped at his small cottage. Not recognizing the gods, Hyrius welcomed them warmly and served them a humble feast of beans, herbs, and aged wine. As they ate, Jupiter offered them a wish. Surprisingly, instead of a spouse, Mercury wished to become a father. Everyone agreed silently, sealing their pact with an oath on an ox's hide. Months later, a son named Urian was born to Hyrius and his companion, Dia. Urian grew up to be a guardian of a goddess connected to the stars. However, Urian, now known as Orion, made a boastful claim challenging the gods' powers. This angered the earth, which sent a scorpion to attack. Orion bravely fought but was ultimately transformed into a constellation of stars. This ancient tale teaches us about destiny, the bonds between mortals and gods, and the consequences of arrogance. It reflects the delicate balance of our lives where myths and reality intertwine. In the Bible's Genesis 18, a similar story unfolds where the Lord visits Abraham. This connection between myths and sacred texts invites us to explore the mysteries of our existence. Abraham sat near his tent when he saw three visitors nearby. He rushed to greet them warmly, offering water to wash their feet and delicious food to eat. Surprisingly, one of them predicted that Sarah, despite being very old, would have a son. This made Sarah laugh in disbelief, but the visitor said, "Is anything too hard for the Lord?" Then the talk shifted to the cities of Sodom and Gomorrah, known for their bad deeds. Abraham asked if the cities would be spared if even a few good people lived there. He negotiated with the Lord, asking if the cities would be saved if 10 good people were found. Astonishingly, the Lord agreed. After the visitors left, Abraham thought deeply about the conversation. His bravery in talking with the Lord showed how much the Lord cared about doing what's fair and listening to those who believe. This story tells us about Abraham's kindness and faith, showing that even when things seem impossible, the Lord can make amazing things happen. It teaches us about goodness, negotiation, and the mercy of the divine. The story of Sodom and Gomorrah from Genesis 19 is quite intriguing. It talks about two visitors who were actually angels sent to the cities. When they arrived at Sodom, a man named Lot, who was sitting at the city's entrance, saw them. He rushed to greet them and insisted they stay at his house for the night. Lot prepared a feast for these visitors, who revealed a serious message. The cities of Sodom and Gomorrah were wicked and would be destroyed by God. They warned Lot to flee with his family and not to look back as they left the cities. Sadly, Lot's wife did look back and turned into a pillar of salt. The story also tells us that Lot's daughters, thinking they were the only survivors, made their father drunk and had children by him to continue their family line. This story has some interesting similarities with another tale called the Philon and Bacchus myth from ancient Roman writings. In both stories, visitors arrive in a city, warning of its impending destruction. There are also parallels with other ancient myths, like those of Greek gods disguised as visitors, divine judgment, and tragic consequences for disobedience. Some scholars suggest that the Genesis story might have been influenced by these other myths. They notice connections in how the stories are told, the themes they share, and even the way certain events unfold. This blending of myths and stories from different cultures might help explain some of the similarities we see. It's possible that the authors of Genesis were familiar with these other tales and used elements from them to craft their own narrative. Overall, these stories of divine visitors, warnings of destruction, and tragic consequences for disobedience are found in various ancient myths and could have influenced each other in fascinating ways. In the ancient stories from the Bible and Greek myths, there are similarities that make them super interesting. Imagine this. Some scholars think that the people who wrote about Jesus might have started with his teachings and then created stories around them. These stories could have been inspired by lots of things, including popular Greek stories from that time. The Gospel of Luke, one of the books about Jesus, seems to want to connect with more people, especially those who knew about Greek tales. Some experts believe that Luke's stories share a lot of things with those big Greek poems like the Odyssey. This epic Greek story has gods visiting humans in disguise, kind of like how Jesus shows up after his resurrection but isn't recognized. Now in this Bible story, Jesus appears after he's come back to life, but his friends don't recognize him at first. It's a bit different from other tales where gods change how they look. Jesus walks and talks with his pals, Cleopas and another person who we don't know the name of, and they're discussing recent events. Funny enough, they don't realize Jesus is right there with them. It's like when you talk about a famous person without realizing they're standing next to you. Cleopas, one of Jesus' friends, has a name that might mean Father's glory. Jesus, still in disguise, chats with Cleopas, who hopes Jesus would save their community. But Cleopas isn't fully convinced about the news that Jesus is alive again. Jesus then explains that tough times were necessary before achieving glory. It's like a scene from a cool ancient story where a divine guest corrects someone who doesn't know who they are. As they walk, Jesus gets invited to stay for a meal, a classic move when a mysterious guest, sometimes a god in disguise, shows up in old stories. Jesus takes the lead, blesses the food, and breaks the bread for everyone. Suddenly his friends realize who he is, but the story doesn't really explain how they figured it out. It's more about them believing it's him than actually seeing it. Then, poof, Jesus disappears, leaving them amazed. This story reminds us of other ancient tales where gods vanished suddenly. These stories use dramatic exits to leave people in awe and wonder. The connections between these ancient stories from different cultures show how people loved sharing similar tales about gods walking among regular folks. Understanding these stories helps us appreciate our shared human experiences across time. So what do you think? These old stories have so much in common, right? They teach us about hospitality, surprises, and how people long ago imagined gods interacting with us. Isn't it fascinating? Thank you for watching today's video. If you found this video interesting, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe to our channel for more thought-provoking content. Join the conversation in the comments below and stay tuned for our next mythological exploration.